Kalara's world had been one of glittering towers and endless skies, where light reflected off crystalline buildings like rivers of liquid silver. She had lived in the heart of her empire, a diplomat known for her sharp mind and unwavering loyalty. But today all that trust had turned to betrayal. Her own people had framed her for crimes she did not commit, claiming she had plotted against the very empire she had served her whole life. The accusation had come swiftly, and before she could even defend herself, her closest allies had turned away, leaving her alone. Now, Kalara stumbled through the jagged terrain of Zithara's wastelands. The wind was harsh, carrying fine, stinging sand that cut against her skin. Her armor was damaged, cracked in multiple places, and her energy shield flickered weakly. She had fought through these lands many times before, but never like this, alone, hunted and desperate. The betrayal still burned in her mind, sharper than the biting wind. She had trusted them. She had believed in her people, and they had left her to die. Hours turned into a blur as Kalara struggled to keep moving. Her limbs ached, her vision blurred, and every step felt heavier than the last. She had almost resigned herself to her fate when a sudden shadow passed overhead. Instinctively, she raised her hand to activate her weapon, only to see a small ship descending nearby. The craft looked fragile, nothing like the sleek patrol vessels of her empire. Its metal hull was scratched and patched, and it carried no insignia she recognized. From the ship emerged a human. Kalara had met humans before on diplomatic missions, and she had always found them unpredictable. This one was tall, lean, with dark hair and sharp eyes that moved quickly, scanning the horizon. He wore simple gear, practical and worn, but it was clear he knew how to survive. His eyes locked on hers, not with fear or judgment, but with concern. "Are you alive?" he asked, his voice calm but urgent. Kalara's pride flared. She didn't need help from a human, not even now. "I don't need your help," she said, her voice firm, though faint with exhaustion. The human smiled slightly, as if he understood that her words were not a refusal, but a reflex. "Well, you look like you do anyway," he said, taking a step closer. Without waiting for permission, he extended a hand. "Name's Marcus. Come on, you can't survive here alone." Kalara hesitated. She had learned not to trust easily, especially not after betrayal. But she was too weak to continue on her own. Her armor was failing, and the desert seemed endless. With a reluctant nod, she allowed Marcus to help her to the ship. Inside, it was cramped but safe. Marcus moved with practiced ease, examining her armor and the small cuts and bruises she had suffered. "We need to patch this up," he said, handing her a small device. "Hold still." Kalara studied him silently. He was human, yes, but not like the ones who had come to conquer or bargain. There was no malice, no self-interest in his eyes, only care. It was disarming. Hours passed as Marcus worked. He repaired her armor with tools Kalara had never seen before. She watched, fascinated despite herself. The human's hands were steady, precise, and confident. "Your armor is designed to redistribute energy when damaged," he explained. "I can't fix everything, but this will keep you alive long enough to get somewhere safe." Kalara found herself nodding, not out of submission, but out of recognition. He knew what he was doing. When the repairs were done, Marcus offered her some water and food. Kalara accepted, sipping slowly, grateful but still wary. She had been alone for so long, surviving on her own instincts and training. She wasn't used to this. "Kindness, why are you helping me?" she asked finally, her voice quieter now. Marcus shrugged as if it were the simplest thing in the world. "Because I can. Because someone has to. And because you're alive, that's worth saving." Kalara looked away, her pride clashing with her need. Humans were strange creatures. They lacked her empire's sophistication. Their technology was crude, yet somehow they had a resourcefulness and heart that others often underestimated. She had always thought of humans as fragile, unpredictable, and temporary in the grand scheme of the universe. But Marcus made her question that belief. They left the ship and began moving cautiously across the desert. The wasteland stretched endlessly, filled with jagged rocks, deep canyons, and sudden storms of sand and acid. Kalara led the way, using her knowledge of the land, while Marcus followed closely, helping where he could. They fought through the elements together. At first, Kalara saw him as nothing more than a competent human, useful but replaceable. Yet every time he saved her from a sudden drop or repaired a crack in her armor mid-step, her respect grew. Night fell, and the temperature dropped. Kalara shivered despite her armor. Marcus built a small fire using techniques she had never seen before, simple but effective. They sat in silence, watching the flames dance against the dark horizon. Kilara was quiet, her thoughts heavy with betrayal, with the empire that had turned against her. Marcus, sensing her need for space, didn't press. Instead, he kept the fire alive and shared simple stories about his travels. Stories of humans exploring planets no one had charted, of surviving against odds that seemed impossible. Kilara listened, intrigued despite herself. Humans were simpler than her people, yet somehow they managed to do the extraordinary. Marcus had done the extraordinary today. He had saved her life when no one else would. The following days were a blur of movement and survival. Imperial agents were searching for her, leaving patrols and tracking devices across the desert. Kilara and Marcus had to remain hidden, moving only at night, taking shelter in caves and abandoned ruins. Every step was dangerous, every decision critical. Kilara found herself relying on Marcus more than she had anticipated. His instincts were sharp, his resourcefulness impressive, and he never faltered under pressure. One night, while resting in a rocky alcove, Kilara finally spoke. "I never thought I would need anyone," she admitted, her voice quiet. Marcus looked at her, not with surprise but understanding. "No one ever does," he said. "Until it matters." Kilara couldn't meet his eyes. She was a diplomat, trained to hide emotions, to remain composed, yet something about Marcus made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in years. Their bond grew slowly, quietly, without words. Shared danger, shared survival, and small gestures of care began to build trust. Marcus never pressured her, never demanded loyalty. He simply acted day by day, proving that he could be counted on. Kilara found herself thinking about him, wondering how someone so ordinary, so human, could carry so much strength and courage. The turning point came unexpectedly. Imperial agents had tracked them to a narrow canyon. The human's small ship was destroyed and escape seemed impossible. Kilara drew her weapon, preparing to fight to the death, expecting Marcus to stay behind. But he didn't. He fought beside her, not with her alien technology, but with clever human tactics, setting traps, using terrain, improvising weapons from the rocks and debris around them. Kilara was stunned. She had fought countless battles, seen countless strategies, yet Marcus's improvisation and courage were unmatched. Together, they managed to fend off the agents long enough to escape through a hidden tunnel Kilara knew from her youth. They emerged far from danger, exhausted but alive. That night, as they rested under a sky filled with unfamiliar stars, Kilara realized something she could not ignore. Marcus had saved her, protected her, and stood by her side when no one else would. And in that realization, a strange warmth filled her chest. She did not understand it fully yet, but it was undeniable. For the first time in days, Kilara allowed herself to relax, to feel safe, and to trust, not just in survival, but in the human beside her. Marcus, lying nearby, looked at her with the quiet patience that had carried them this far. He did not say anything, but Kilara understood. They were a team, not by duty or loyalty, but by choice, and perhaps in the chaos of betrayal and danger, something more was beginning to take root. A bond, fragile yet unbreakable, between an alien woman betrayed and a human who chose to save her. As the night deepened, the wind softened and Kilara let herself believe, just for a moment, that the galaxy was not entirely cruel. Somewhere out there, amidst betrayal and danger, she had found someone she could rely on, and that, she realized, was a power stronger than any armor, any weapon, or any empire could ever offer. Kilara and Marcus moved cautiously through the rocky terrain, their bodies still sore from the confrontation with the Imperial agents. The desert night was cold, but the sky above sparkled with stars unfamiliar to Kilara, distant suns of unknown systems that reminded her how vast the galaxy was. She walked beside Marcus, her mind heavy with thoughts of betrayal, survival, and him. They reached a narrow canyon that Marcus said might provide shelter. It was not much, just a hollowed-out crevice in the rock, but it would protect them from sandstorms and the occasional predator. Marcus quickly set up a makeshift camp. His human ingenuity amazed Kilara. He could build, repair, and improvise with what seemed like nothing. She watched him quietly, realizing that each small action carried care, attention, and patience. "You do this a lot?" she asked softly, breaking the silence. Marcus shrugged without looking up. "More than I'd like to admit. Helps you survive out here." Kilara studied him, her eyes lingering on the way his hands moved, sure and steady, even in the dim light. "I underestimated humans," she admitted, the words feeling strange on her tongue. "I thought you were fragile, chaotic, temporary. But you adapt. You survive, and you help without expecting anything in return." Marcus paused, finally meeting her gaze. "We survive because we have to, not just for ourselves, but sometimes for others. I helped you because I could. Because you deserved it." The words warmed her more than the small fire he had built. Kaylara, despite her pride, felt a connection forming, a fragile trust slowly growing into something deeper. She had spent her life relying on strategy, influence, and status. Marcus offered none of those things. He offered only himself, his skill, and his courage. And it was enough. Morning came with a pale orange light washing over the canyon. Kaylara and Marcus moved on, careful to stay hidden from the Empire's patrols. Marcus suggested they seek out a rebel faction rumored to oppose the corrupt leaders of her empire. At first, Kaylara hesitated. She had been betrayed by everyone she trusted. Joining a faction relying on strangers felt dangerous. But Marcus's calm confidence persuaded her. "We have no other choice," he said simply. "We need allies." After 2 days of cautious travel, they arrived at a hidden base carved into the cliffs. The rebels were wary, even hostile at first. Kaylara stepped forward, her diplomatic training kicking in, while Marcus stood beside her, lending silent support. He didn't speak much, but his presence conveyed strength. The rebels listened, and eventually, Kaylara's words convinced them. She was not a traitor. She was a victim of a larger conspiracy, and she could help them expose it. Over the following days, Kaylara and Marcus worked with the rebels to plan a strategy. Kaylara provided intelligence about her empire's inner workings, their patrol routes, and the real traitors. Marcus contributed his ingenuity, building devices to detect surveillance, create distractions, and improve communication. Their teamwork was seamless, each action reinforcing the trust that had begun to grow between them. As the days passed, Kaylara began to notice herself drawn to Marcus in ways she had never expected. It wasn't just respect, it was admiration, curiosity, and something tender that she didn't understand at first. She found herself glancing at him when he was focused, noticing small gestures, the way he adjusted equipment, the faint smile when a plan worked, the care in his actions. And Marcus, though seemingly oblivious, noticed her too, the way her eyes brightened when she found a solution, the way she hesitated before speaking, and the quiet determination in her every movement. One evening, after a long day of planning, Kaylara and Marcus were alone in the rebel base's small command room. Maps and data pads were scattered across the table. Marcus was repairing a broken device while Kaylara studied patrol patterns. For the first time, Kaylara spoke without thinking. "I never thought I could trust anyone again." Marcus looked up, his eyes meeting hers. "It's not easy, I know, but sometimes trust has to start somewhere. You start with someone who shows you they're worth it." She was silent, considering his words. Her empire had taught her to trust power, influence, and status, but none of that had saved her. Marcus had, and that truth was undeniable. The next day, they began the final phase of their plan. Using Kaylara's knowledge and Marcus's devices, they infiltrated one of the Empire's communication outposts. It was dangerous. Guards patrolled the area constantly, and a single mistake could mean capture or death. Kaylara felt a familiar surge of fear, but Marcus was beside her, steady and unflinching. "Stick with me," he whispered, guiding her through the corridors. His hand brushed hers briefly, a small electric moment she felt deep in her chest. Kaylara's pulse quickened, but she focused, reminding herself that there was a mission to complete. Inside the control room, Kaylara accessed the Empire's records exposing the traitors who had framed her. Marcus worked quickly to disable surveillance and create a distraction. Every step required precision, courage, and trust. And for the first time, Kaylara realized she could rely on someone without fear of betrayal. She could rely on Marcus. The operation was tense. Alarms blared, guards rushed in, and the rebels outside created diversions. Marcus and Kaylara moved with synchronized efficiency. When the traitors' actions were fully exposed, Kaylara transmitted the evidence across the Empire's network. The Empire had no choice but to acknowledge the truth. Kaylara's name was cleared, her reputation restored. As the chaos settled, Kaylara and Marcus stood together outside the control room. The night air was cool, carrying the distant hum of the Empire's systems rebooting. Kylara felt an unfamiliar calm, a quiet joy. She turned to Marcus, her voice low and hesitant. "I don't know what I would have done without you." Marcus smiled, a gentle, human smile that made her heart beat faster. "You wouldn't have had to. You had me, and I wouldn't have let anything happen to you." Kylara looked at him, seeing more than a human. She saw courage, loyalty, and a strength that surpassed her own expectations. And she realized something profound: she was falling for him. Not because of his skill or his courage or even the fact that he saved her life, but because of who he was and what he represented. Hope, trust, and the possibility of love in a galaxy full of betrayal. Marcus, sensing her gaze, reached out, brushing a strand of sand-streaked hair from her face. The gesture was simple, intimate, and it made Kylara's chest tighten. She didn't pull away. For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself to feel without restraint, without fear. I never expected this," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Marcus's eyes softened. "Neither did I, but maybe that's the point. The unexpected is sometimes the best thing." They spent the night talking, sharing stories of their past, their hopes, and their fears. Kylara learned about Marcus's life on Earth, his family, and the adventures that had shaped him. Marcus learned about Kylara's childhood in the crystalline cities, her rise in the Empire, and the betrayal that nearly destroyed her. The more they shared, the closer they became, and the bond that had begun with survival grew into something deeper. In the following days, Kylara helped the rebels rebuild and reorganize, her intelligence and strategy invaluable. Marcus continued to support her, his practical skills and calm demeanor a perfect complement to her knowledge. Their teamwork became seamless, almost instinctive, and with each success, Kylara found herself smiling more, feeling lighter, and thinking more of Marcus than she had ever thought possible. Eventually, the Empire recognized her as innocent and reinstated her position, yet Kylara didn't return immediately. She stayed with the rebels for a time, helping to stabilize the region and ensure that the corrupt traitors were removed. Marcus stayed with her, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Together they had saved her reputation, protected innocent lives, and forged a bond that neither betrayal nor danger could break. Finally, when the dust settled, Kylara stood on a cliff overlooking Zithara's crystalline horizon, the light of its towers reflecting the dawn. Marcus was beside her, silent but present. She turned to him, her eyes bright. "Thank you. For everything. For trusting me, for helping me, and for being here." Marcus smiled, taking her hand gently. "Always. I'll be here as long as you let me." Kylara felt a warmth in her chest she hadn't known in years. She had been betrayed, abandoned, and left for dead. But now, standing beside Marcus, she realized that hope, trust, and love were still possible. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but it had also brought her him, and that was more than she could have ever hoped for. As they looked out over the horizon, Kylara knew that her life had changed forever. She had survived betrayal, fought for her name, and found someone who truly cared for her. And as she squeezed Marcus's hand, she understood that this was only the beginning, of trust, of partnership, and of a love that neither empire nor danger could ever take away. The stars above seemed brighter now, not just a reminder of how vast the universe was, but of how full of possibilities life could be. Kylara and Marcus stood together, ready to face whatever came next. Not just as allies, not just as friends, but as two hearts that had found each other against all odds. And in that moment, the galaxy seemed a little less cruel and a lot more alive. Ethan had traveled far across the stars, his small ship gliding through the endless stretch of purple and blue nebulae. He had delivered goods, rare minerals, and even exotic creatures to distant planets, but this delivery was different. He was to escort a human woman named Lena to her new home. She was a mail-order bride, contracted to an alien family on a planet known for its sprawling cities and floating towers. Ethan didn't know much about her beyond the orders and a strange box she had brought along. Something about it made him curious, but he kept his distance. The moment Lena stepped out of the shuttle, she stiffened. Her wide eyes, full of caution, scanned the alien world before her. Ethan could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the straps of her bag. She didn't speak. She didn't smile. It was clear she was uncomfortable, unsure, and perhaps even afraid. "Welcome to Viridian," Ethan said, keeping his tone gentle. He didn't want to startle her. The alien city shimmered in the light of twin suns, casting strange reflections on the glass-like structures around them. Alien beings passed by, walking on legs and arms in ways Ethan had never seen. Some had wings, some had luminescent skin, and others moved as if floating on air. Lena's eyes widened again, and she instinctively took a step closer to the box she carried. The box was unusual. It was not large, but it had a faint glow and small symbols etched along its edges. Lena held it as if it were her most precious possession, and she did not want anyone near it. Ethan understood that respect was important. He didn't touch it. He only offered a polite nod. "I'll take you to your home," Ethan said. He motioned toward the shuttle. Lena nodded but said nothing. Her silence was not rude, it was guarded. She walked slowly, as if every step needed careful thought. Ethan followed, making sure to keep a respectful distance. The journey through the city was strange and mesmerizing. The streets were alive with colors, shapes, and sounds that Ethan had never imagined. Cars that seemed to hover, lights that shifted in patterns, and beings that spoke in musical tones filled the air. Lena stayed quiet, holding the box close to her chest. Ethan noticed her eyes darting toward every movement, her body tense as if ready to flee at any moment. When they arrived at the residence of Lena's future family, the alien hosts greeted them politely but without much warmth. The house was large, almost like a palace, with walls that glowed softly and floors that seemed to float. The alien who would be Lena's spouse was kind but distant, explaining that he had little time and trusted Ethan to help her settle. Lena didn't speak. She barely looked at her new home. She placed her box on a table and wrapped her arms around herself. Ethan watched her quietly, noticing the slight tremor in her hands. Something was clearly wrong. She was not just shy. She was anxious, maybe even scared. Over the next few hours, Ethan tried to make conversation. He asked her simple questions, her favorite foods, her hobbies, her home planet. Lena answered in short, cautious phrases. She did not smile, did not relax, and did not seem to trust anyone yet. Ethan realized that no amount of talking would break through her walls. She needed something else, something to show her that he was reliable, that she could feel safe. Then the first problem appeared. The air conditioning system in the house began to malfunction. The room Lena was in started to cool rapidly. For humans, this might have been uncomfortable. For her, it could be dangerous. She shivered and moved closer to the box, as if the box could somehow protect her. Ethan noticed immediately. Without hesitation, he went to the system and began inspecting it. He had some experience with alien technology from his travels, and he quickly understood the issue. Lena watched him silently, her eyes wide. She didn't move closer or speak, but she did not leave. It was as if she had decided to trust him enough to let him handle the danger. Ethan worked carefully, adjusting wires, recalibrating controls, and finally stabilizing the temperature. The room warmed again, and the faint hum of machinery returned to normal. Lena exhaled quietly, a small sound that Ethan almost missed. He smiled gently, not wanting to startle her. "It's okay now. You're safe," he said. She only nodded, still clutching the box. But Ethan noticed something different. Her shoulders relaxed just a little. It was subtle, but it was progress. Over the next few days, Ethan continued his careful attention. He did not force conversation or closeness. He simply made sure Lena's needs were met. He helped her prepare meals, showing her how to use the alien kitchen devices. He ensured her room was comfortable and private. Slowly, Lena began to observe him more closely. She watched the way he moved, the care he showed, and the way he respected her space. One evening, Lena finally spoke. It was quiet, almost a whisper. "Can you help me with this?" she asked, holding up the box. Ethan's heart lifted. It was the first time she had asked for help willingly. "Of course," he said. He moved closer but still allowed space between them. Lena set the box on the table and hesitated. "Be careful," she said. "It's important." Ethan nodded. "I will." He examined the box carefully. It was unlike anything he had seen before. Small lights pulsed along its edges, and strange symbols glowed faintly. It seemed almost alive, reacting to their presence. Lena watched, her hands trembling slightly. As he worked, Ethan asked gently, "Can you tell me what it does?" Lena shook her head. "Not yet," she said. "It's personal." But she didn't pull it away. She stayed watching him with cautious curiosity. Hours passed. Ethan carefully adjusted mechanisms, tested responses, and ensured the box was stable. Lena's fear gradually gave way to fascination. She leaned slightly forward, peeking over the edge of the table, and finally allowed a small smile to appear. It was a tiny thing, almost invisible, but it was the first sign that she was beginning to warm up. The next day, Lena spoke more. She asked questions about the city, the people, and Ethan's travels. Her curiosity was growing, and for the first time she laughed, a small musical sound that made Ethan smile. He realized that trust was beginning to form, slowly, like sunlight breaking through clouds. Evenings were the hardest. Lena would sit by the window staring at the alien skyline, hugging her box tightly. Ethan respected her silence but stayed nearby, reading or working quietly. Sometimes he caught her glance and she would look away quickly. It was progress, still slow but undeniable. Then another problem arose. The box emitted a sudden pulse of light, startling Lena. She gasped and almost dropped it. Ethan immediately steadied it, his hands careful and precise. "It's okay," he said calmly. "I've got it." Lena's breathing slowed and she finally relaxed, her trust in him solidifying. For the first time since arriving, Lena allowed herself to talk freely about her fears. She spoke of leaving Earth, of the unknown alien world, and of the loneliness she felt. Ethan listened without interrupting, offering gentle words of reassurance. "You're not alone here," he said, "and you're not alone with me." By the end of the week, Lena's walls were beginning to crumble. She still held the box close, but she smiled more, laughed occasionally, and even asked Ethan to sit with her while she worked on it. The alien family noticed the change, impressed by human patience and understanding. Ethan realized that humans had a unique ability to connect, to bring warmth and trust even in strange and distant worlds. Lena finally admitted one night softly, "I didn't think I could trust anyone here, but I think I can trust you." Ethan nodded. He didn't say much. Sometimes words were not needed. The simple act of respect, care, and patience had done more than any speech could. The story of trust, patience, and human resilience had just begun. Ethan knew that tomorrow more challenges awaited, more mysteries about the box, and more ways for Lena to discover the strength inside herself and the human's special place in the galaxy. But for now, the first step had been taken. Lena had begun to warm up, and a bond was forming that no alien obstacle could easily break. And so, in the quiet glow of the alien city, a human mail-order bride and her reluctant companion found the first flicker of understanding, trust, and connection. The box remained a mystery, but it no longer felt like a wall between them. It was a bridge,